Miles Benson was not your ordinary human. At 28, he was an accomplished geneticist with a slew of papers under his belt, exploring the obscure fringes of human genetics. Little did he know that his research would soon attract an audience from light years away. It was a particularly stormy evening when the anomaly occurred. Miles was working late in his private laboratory, analyzing genetic sequences that could potentially unlock new pathways for human immunity. The heavy rain against the window pane seemed to echo the intensity of his concentration. Suddenly, the lights flickered and went out, plunging the lab into darkness. As Miles groped for the emergency flashlight in his drawer, a blinding light exploded through the room. He shielded his eyes, heart racing as the light condensed into a more manageable glow. Standing in front of him were three figures, tall, imposing, and unmistakably non-human. They were at least 7 feet tall, with shimmering silver skin and features that were both beautiful and terrifying. Their eyes were a deep, penetrating violet, and they moved with an elegance that belied their size. "Greetings, Miles Benson. We are from the planet Valoria." The one in the center spoke, her voice melodious yet commanding. Miles blinked, his scientific curiosity momentarily overshadowing his fear. "Valoria? I don't understand. How is this possible?" Miles stammered, trying to process the surreal encounter. "We have been monitoring your genetic research," another explained, her tone soft yet precise. "You possess knowledge and skills that are crucial for our mission." "And what mission would that be?" Miles asked, his voice steadying. "Our species is at risk of genetic degradation. We need fresh genetic material to diversify our gene pool, and your work has identified you as having the strongest genes in your galaxy," the leader stated. Miles' mind raced. This was beyond anything he could have imagined. Aliens were real, and they were talking to him about genetics. "Why me?" he finally managed to ask. "You have manipulated genetic codes to cure diseases in ways that suggest a deep, intuitive understanding of genetics. This is what we need," she responded. Miles was flabbergasted. "And what do you expect me to do exactly?" "We wish for you to come with us to Valoria. You will assist in our breeding program to ensure the survival of our species," the third alien added. The gravity of the request weighed on Miles. Leaving Earth to help an alien species. It was the kind of thing you read about in a science fiction novel, not something you expected to happen in real life. Seeing his hesitation, the leader stepped forward. "We understand this is a lot to ask. You will, of course, be compensated. We can offer you knowledge and technologies beyond anything your world has seen." The offer was tempting. Miles had always wanted to make a big impact. Perhaps this was his chance. But could he leave everything behind? His family, his friends, his planet. As the storm raged outside, Miles knew he had a decision to make. A decision that could change his life and possibly the future of an entire species. "Give me some time to think," he said, his voice barely a whisper over the howl of the wind. "You have 24 hours, the leader said, before they all vanished as quickly as they had appeared, leaving Miles alone with his thoughts and the soft hum of the equipment coming back to life. Miles spent the night tossing and turning, the offer from the Valorian representatives echoing in his mind. Every rational part of him screamed that this was insane. Yet the pull of the unknown tugged at his adventurous spirit. By dawn he had made up his mind. He was going to accept their proposal. He arrived at his lab early, trying to put his affairs in order before the inevitable departure. He left detailed instructions for his assistant on how to continue his research, along with a series of encrypted emails scheduled to send in case he couldn't make contact himself. As promised, the Valorians returned exactly 24 hours after their initial visit. The leader, who introduced herself as Serena, gestured for him to follow them. Without looking back, Miles stepped into the beam of light, and the lab, and Earth, faded away. He materialized aboard the Valorian vessel, a marvel of technology and design. The interior was sleek, illuminated by soft ambient light. Panels of translucent material displayed star charts and biological data in a flowing script he couldn't begin to decipher. "We will commence with a brief tour of the vessel," Serena said, leading him through corridors that hummed with alien energy. Your comfort and understanding of our technologies are paramount. They showed him the ship's main control room, a vast library of genetic resources, and the medical bay where he would work. Everything was strikingly advanced, with interfaces that responded to touch, voice, and even thought. His quarters were surprisingly homely, fitted with amenities to make his stay comfortable. "We have done our best to accommodate your human needs," explained Tyra, another member of the crew, with a slight smile. The next few days were a whirlwind of training and adaptation. Miles learned to use their equipment, fascinated by the integration of technology and biology in their tools. The Valorians were patient but insistent teachers, eager for him to start contributing. His first real task was to review the genetic makeup of the Valorian species. He was astounded by the complexity of their DNA, far beyond human structures. "Our genetic sequence allows for abilities you would consider supernatural," Serena explained as they looked over the data. "You have telepathic abilities?" Miles asked, recalling how they seemed to communicate non-verbally. "Not in the way you might think," she replied. "Our form of communication is more about emotion and intent, less about words." Miles's work began in earnest. He was tasked with developing a hybridization protocol that would incorporate human DNA into the Valorian gene pool, enhancing their genetic diversity without compromising their unique abilities. The challenge was daunting, but Miles was invigorated by the scientific challenges. As weeks turned into months, Miles found himself growing closer to the Valorians. They were proud but kind, their society complex and fascinating. He learned of their art, their philosophy, and their history, which was marked by both great achievements and devastating wars. His initial loneliness faded as he became a respected member of the crew, his input valued and his companionship sought after. Yet, despite the wonders around him, thoughts of Earth lingered. He wondered about the world he had left behind, about the quiet lab where Miles watched as the genetic synthesizer hummed softly, processing the data he had input. The laboratory was quiet except for the occasional murmur of the ship's systems, a sound he had come to find comforting. Serena entered the lab, her presence commanding yet reassuring. "Progress report, Dr. Benson?" she inquired, her violet eyes scanning the data screens that floated holographically above the workstation. "We are close," Miles replied, adjusting the parameters slightly. "The simulations suggest a high compatibility ratio. I believe we're ready for a preliminary trial with actual DNA samples." Serena nodded thoughtfully. "Your work could mark a turning point for us, Miles. We are cautious, yet optimistic." Miles prepared the laboratory for the trial, his hands steady despite the significance of the moment. Using a meticulously calibrated injector, he introduced human DNA sequences into Valorian genetic material. The process needed to be monitored closely. Any sign of rejection or anomaly would be critical. The Valorians observed, their faces unreadable. Miles, however, could sense their tension. It was a palpable thing, hanging heavy in the air. Hours passed as they waited for the initial results, the silence punctuated only by the occasional beep of the machinery. Finally, the monitor pinged softly. The results were in. Miles quickly analyzed the data, a slow smile spreading across his face. "It's a success," he announced. "The integration is stable, and the cells are dividing normally." A murmur of relief and excitement passed through the Valorian observers. Serena stepped forward, her eyes reflecting a deep, unspoken gratitude. "You have given us more than just hope, Miles. You have given us a future." Emboldened by the success, Miles proposed moving on to the next phase, developing a full embryonic integration. This stage would be more complex and would require creating a viable embryo that combined both human and Valorian genetic traits. The implications were enormous, not just scientifically, but ethically. Miles and the Valorians spent long hours discussing the potential consequences. They considered every aspect, from the biological implications to the social and cultural impacts. It was uncharted territory, and every decision carried weight. As the experiments continued, Miles felt a growing connection to the Valorians. Their fate was becoming his own, their hopes intertwined with his achievements. He learned their language, their expressions, and found himself often forgetting the vast distances between his birth world and where he now stood. One evening, as the starlight streamed through the lab's viewport, Tyra approached him. "Your dedication is admired by all on Valoria," she said, her voice warm. "Have you ever considered what your role will be once the project reaches fruition?" Miles paused, considering her words. "I've been so focused on the task at hand, I haven't really thought about the future." "Perhaps," Tyra suggested gently, "your place is here with us, as part of our world. You've changed us, Miles. Maybe this is where you belong." The idea resonated with him more than he expected. Was his destiny not just to aid the Valorians, but to become one of them? As he pondered these thoughts, he realized how much he had changed since leaving Earth. His old life seemed like a distant memory, his identity now irrevocably tied to his work and his new companions. Miles returned to his research with renewed vigor, aware that each step forward was a step into a shared future. The possibilities of what lay ahead were as vast as the cosmos itself. The laboratory aboard the Valorian ship was alive with activity, as the final preparations for the embryonic integration trial were underway. Miles, now deeply versed in Valorian genetic technologies, oversaw the setup with a practiced eye. The data from their successful DNA fusion experiments offered a promising outlook, but the true challenge lay ahead. With the embryo carefully secured in the bio-nurturing chamber, Miles initiated the sequence. Beside him, Serena watched closely, her expression a mask of both hope and apprehension. This step was crucial. The embryo represented not just a scientific breakthrough, but the dawn of a new era for her people. As the hours ticked by, the initial indicators were positive. The embryo exhibited all the signs of healthy development, integrating both human and Valorian genetic traits seamlessly. Miles documented every detail, his logs a meticulous record of their groundbreaking work. "Look at this," he pointed out to Serena, showing her the cellular activity on the screen. "The genetic markers are stable, and the growth rate is within expected parameters." Serena's eyes lit up with a mixture of relief and excitement. "This is beyond what we had hoped for," she murmured, her voice tinged with emotion. Their success spread quickly throughout the ship, and soon other members of the crew came to observe. Their expressions ranged from awe to disbelief as they watched the tiny heartbeat on the monitor, a beacon of their potential salvation. Miles felt a surge of pride. Here, far from his home planet, he was helping to save another species. The weight of his responsibility was immense, yet exhilarating. In the following days, Miles found himself increasingly drawn to the cultural aspects of the Valorians. He attended their council meetings, participated in their daily rituals, and learned about their philosophies and arts. It was during one such cultural exchange that he encountered Lyra, a historian and artist. Lyra was fascinated by human culture, and she and Miles spent long hours discussing the differences and similarities between their civilizations. She showed him the Valorian archives, a vast collection of historical documents and artworks that spanned millennia. "Your arrival has been prophesied for centuries," Lyra told him one evening as they walked through the archive halls. "See here." She gestured towards an ancient text illuminated with intricate symbols. "It speaks of a star-born healer who would emerge from beyond to save our kind." Miles was skeptical of prophecies, but he couldn't deny the uncanny alignment of his own journey with their lore. It added a layer of mysticism to his scientific endeavors, intertwining his fate with theirs in ways he had not anticipated. The development of the embryo continued to progress well, and soon it was time for the next significant step, the implantation. This procedure was delicate, the culmination of all their efforts, and if successful, it would lead to the first hybrid offspring. Under the watchful eyes of the entire crew, Miles performed the implantation. Every step was executed with precision, every variable meticulously controlled. The silence in the room was palpable, broken only by the soft hum of machinery and the steady beat of the hybrid heart. After what seemed like an eternity, the monitors confirmed the success of the implantation. Cheers and cries of joy echoed through the lab, the crew embracing each other in celebration. Serena turned to Miles, her eyes brimming with tears. "You have not only given us hope, Miles, you have given us a future." As the celebrations continued, Miles stepped back, watching the jubilant faces of his new friends and colleagues. He realized then that his life... Miles stood before the Valorian Council, the chamber echoing with the soft murmur of its members. Today, he would present the findings from the hybridization project, an event that had attracted not just scientists, but also leaders, philosophers, and even artists like Lyra. The air was thick with anticipation. The results of this project could redefine the future trajectory of the entire Valorian civilization. "As you can see," Miles began, gesturing to the holographic images floating above the council table, "the integration has not only been successful, but has also surpassed our initial projections. The hybrid cells exhibit a remarkable synthesis of human adaptability and Valorian resilience." The council members nodded, their expressions thoughtful as they absorbed the implications of his words. "This synthesis," Miles continued, "could lead to a renaissance of genetic diversity for your people, potentially eradicating the genetic stagnation you faced for centuries." One of the elder counselors, a venerable figure named Thanor, raised a hand. "And what of the human traits? There are aspects of your kind that we do not understand fully. How can we anticipate all possible outcomes?" Miles respected the counselor's foresight. "A valid concern," he acknowledged. "We've initiated a series of behavioral and physiological studies to monitor these traits closely. Human beings are known for their emotional complexity and adaptability, traits that could benefit Valorian society in ways we've yet to fully comprehend." The discussion shifted as Lyra spoke up, her voice calm yet assertive. "There is also the cultural aspect to consider. This hybrid represents a union not just of genetics, but of spirits and histories. We must prepare our people to embrace this new chapter." Her words resonated with the council, sparking a deeper conversation about integration, not just at a biological level, but within the fabric of Valorian society itself. In the weeks that followed, Miles found himself increasingly involved in these cultural dialogues, his role expanding beyond the confines of the laboratory. The hybrid's development was on track, and now the broader societal implications took precedence. The embryo, now developing in a specially designed incubation chamber, became a symbol of hope and unity. Miles visited the chamber daily, monitoring the growth and development with a mix of scientific rigor and paternal concern. The creature that was taking shape was both alien and familiar, a tangible representation of his own deepening ties to this world. As the expected date of the hybrid's emergence approached, the entire ship was abuzz with activity and anticipation. Preparations were made, protocols established, and celebrations planned. The Valorian media, once only mildly interested in the scientific aspects, now covered every development eagerly, broadcasting updates to the populace. On the day of the emergence, Miles was at the incubation chamber from early morning. Serena and Lyra joined him, their faces a mix of excitement and nervousness. The chamber was designed to be transparent, allowing them to witness the first moments of the new life they had created together. The time came, and the chamber's conditions began to change, simulating the natural birthing environment of the Valorians. Gradually, the form inside stirred, its movements becoming more pronounced as it approached the moment of emergence. Finally, with a gentle sound, reminiscent of a sigh, the hybrid appeared. It was a delicate creature, its skin carrying the luminescent sheen of its Valorian heritage and the subtle features of human anatomy. Its eyes opened, revealing irises that shimmered with a blend of human blue and Valorian violet. The room fell silent, every observer captivated by the sight. The hybrid looked around, taking in its surroundings with a curious gaze. In the weeks that followed the hybrid's emergence, Miles watched in awe as it grew, demonstrating traits from both its human and Valorian lineage. Its rapid development was a source of fascination, not just for Miles but for the entire crew and the wider Valorian population. News of the successful hybridization project spread, and the ship frequently hosted delegations from various sectors of Valorian society, all eager to glimpse the future of their species. As the hybrid, whom the council named Evren, matured, It exhibited an extraordinary blend of intelligence and empathy. Evren's ability to understand and process emotions was profound, surpassing even the high expectations of its creators. It seemed to embody the best characteristics of both species, human creativity and emotional depth, combined with Valorian strength and mental acuity. Miles continued his work with a team of Valorian scientists, using the insights gained from Evren's development to refine their techniques. The success had opened up myriad possibilities for further genetic advancements and had sparked a renaissance in Valorian scientific and philosophical thought. One day, while observing Evren in a specially designed learning environment, Serena approached Miles. Her expression was serious, her usual poise tempered with a hint of concern. "MVM, the Council is deliberating on the next phase. There are voices calling for the expansion of the hybrid program," she shared, watching Evren interact with a holographic puzzle. Miles nodded, understanding the implications. "It's a significant step," he said thoughtfully. "We must ensure that ethical considerations keep pace with scientific progress. Evren is not just a scientific experiment, he's a sentient being with his own rights." Serena agreed. "Yes, and your voice has been crucial in reminding us of that. The Council respects your opinion. Would you speak before them tomorrow? Your insights as both a scientist and an adoptive guardian to Evren could help shape the future of this initiative." The next day, Miles stood before the Valorian Council, not just as a scientist but as an advocate for the careful, considered expansion of the hybrid program. He spoke of his experiences, of Evren's unique personality, and of the ethical responsibilities they all shared. His words resonated, prompting nods of agreement and murmurs of assent from the council members. The council decided to proceed, but with strict regulations and oversight to ensure the dignity and rights of any future hybrids. Miles was appointed to a new oversight committee, tasked with monitoring the ethical implementation of the hybrid technology. Months turned into years, and the program saw the birth of several more hybrids, each contributing to the diversity and vitality of Valorian society. Evren grew into a symbol of unity and a bridge between species, involved in both human and Valorian cultural and educational exchanges. As Miles watched Evren, now a young adult, speaking to a gathering of both humans and Valorians, he reflected on the journey that had brought him here. His life had taken a path he could never have imagined that stormy night in his Earth lab. Now, standing among his Valorian colleagues and friends, he felt a profound sense of accomplishment and belonging. The event concluded with a celebration, a vibrant mix of human and Valorian traditions. Music filled the air, a harmonious blend that seemed to encapsulate the unity they had achieved. Miles stood beside Lyra and Serena, watching the festivities. Lyra leaned over, her voice soft but clear over the music. "You've done more than bridge two worlds, Miles.